Well, I'm going to show you how I like to sell pens. And it takes a long time, which I really don't charge myself for. I should when I do this, but for some reason I don't. But what I do is, in order to get the right pen into the right hands, the correct hands, I will talk to the person who's buying the pen, and I might, if they're not able to see me in person, I ask them to send me samples, photographs of their drawings or their handwriting, and then I will try to sort of imitate their handwriting, just to see sort of the size, and maybe if I can figure out how hard they press down on a pen. It's kind of hard. I do a little bit of getting the right guesswork, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult. So these are two samples. Here's a guy that saw the video where I talked about this pen, and I mentioned that it might be for sale, and he said he was interested in case it was for sale. This may not be the right pen for him due to a couple of factors. But maybe it is the right one. I'm looking at his handwriting, and I'm not a handwriting analyst. I can't tell if he is a Republican or Democrat, or I can't tell whether he's a mass murderer. No, he certainly is not that. None of these people are. I'm making a joke here, but I am able to sort of have a sense of, whether they are forceful writers or quiet writers. The top one seems quiet as opposed to this one. It seems a little bit more forceful. So this guy says this is his normal handwriting, normal speed. And one of the things I notice about how he writes is there's a little bit of, rather than keeping the pen on the paper at all times during a word rather, there's some breaks where some of the letters are connected and some are not. So what does that tell me? I don't know. There's a sort of staccato, I guess I would call it. So that, the pen, because it's being lifted up and starting down again, I think I would really want the pen to be very smooth. This one might be a little tiny bit scratchy because of just the way it's built, and I'm just wondering whether this would be the right pen for that sort of staccato action where you're picking the pen up, putting it back down, writing it a little bit, picking it up, putting it down. And this person might find this scratchy, whereas a different pen may be more suited. I don't know which pen that's going to be right now, but I'll see if I can find one. This one, he does write small. I like people when they send me a picture of their handwriting, I like them to include a ruler, as this guy did, just so I can make sure I'm looking at the thing at the right size, and I print this out so it is at the right size. Where's my ruler here to show you that I did it correctly? That should be 1 inch. Well, I'm off by 1/8 of an inch. Stupid Photoshop. But this one, I'm not quite sure. I didn't have a ruler in this case, but I think that this is about right. So I am going to try to find pens for this guy and for this guy. This one, I think he wants something flexible, and I will get him something flexible, but again, I think I'm going to try to find one that that is going to do what he wants, but be a little bit smoother. an example of that might be a pen like this. This one, unfortunately, is I'm selling to some. I have sold already to someone else, but it's a Schaefer pen that has a very rounded tip to it. So I think it could work with this staccato kind of writing that he seems to like. Picking it up and putting it back down, and I think it would work well for him. So I have to find the right pen. Fine, but maybe this would be good. Now, both of these people have given me a price to try to stay within. So I'm also thinking about that when I'm selecting pens. I like to tell people that there's always a way to make pens less expensive, and there's lots of ways to make them more expensive. But to keep pens inexpensive, smaller pens generally work. Pens that are black, not brightly colored, generally are cheaper than ones that are brightly colored. Pens that are plain rather than gold overlay are generally less expensive. Many of the times I'm sort of charging for the nib and the rest is free. So if someone talks about the tooth marks there, the fact it's missing a clip, I'll say, well, okay, I'm not charging you for that. I'm not charging you from here up. I'm charging you from that. And the fact that it's in a pen that works. And again, there can be a way to, a pen like this on eBay can sell from, $25 to $200. And it all depends on the flashiness of the photographs taken, the condition that the pen is in, who's selling it. There's all sorts of reasons. This has some problems, so this would not be at the $200 end of the spectrum. But it's not at the $20 spectrum either. Don't tell eBay sellers this, but I was told that there's, in this pen, this nib here, Waterman, small Waterman, Schaefer nib, there's $22 and some cents of scrap gold value. So a pen just with a gold nib should be at least worth $20 or $22 and some cents at least. And if it's a working nib and a working pen, you should be able to double that at least. And then when you make it a bigger pen, bigger nib, bigger pen, better pen, prettier pen, fancier nib, then you end up with, more dollar signs, more zeros after the first number, a bigger number at the beginning and more zeros. So, but a way to make pens cheaper is, okay, you can buy this a pen in perfect shape, or you can buy one that has this ding in it. So pens that are shop worn or dinged or have a name engraved on them, then they're cheaper. A really good pen for artists and calligraphers, mainly artists really, is a Waterman Commando pen. And Commando pens were made in the 40s. They look like this. They usually have a nice rubbery nib, or they can have a nice rubbery nib on them, really springy and rather robust and fun to draw with. And looking at this guy's drawings and I've seen his drawings on Instagram, and I've seen now the way he writes, sort of very vertical writing. Imagine he holds the pen like this, and I often will also ask people to send me a picture or a video of them holding a pen, because that helps me. If I see that they're holding a pen like this and writing like this, then I know that they're never going to get a thick downstroke unless they move their hand like that. So it sometimes helps me to see how people are writing. There's an artist friend of mine who I sent pens to, and he bought a few, and he holds the pen like this. But he also draws like that. He sort of moves his hand around. It normally wants to be like this, but that's sort of how he makes his lines. So it's perfectly fine because he's drawing it in the direction that the pen is being held. And if he wants to make a thick line that's going in that direction, he moves his hand to do that. So he's a very fluid and versatile artist. Whereas most of the time when you're writing, your hand is in a particular position and it sort of stays that way regardless. So this guy writes vertically. I don't know, because I didn't see him actually write, whether he writes like this or if he holds his pen like that. I can't tell by looking at his lettering either. If I saw that, if he used a flexible nib and I saw that there was a thick stroke and a thin stroke on the V right there, oops, you're not seeing it, the V right there looks like this. If he was using a flexible nib, I have a feeling he is sort of writing like this, with his hand that way, not like this. So I can sort of guess that by looking at the way he made that T. So this pen, I think, would be a pretty good one for him for writing and for drawing, because there's a nice variety of line weight. Now this pen is, as I said, a Waterman Commando pen from the 1940s. This is a little less, or somewhat less, expensive than it would be if it were in great shape, but it's missing this little transparent end, which Waterman made on some of their pens, and quite often they deteriorate, as you see on these three pens. They're all, well, these three pens. So these pens are less expensive than this one would be, because this one has its end on it. So, but the guy that wants this guy doesn't really care. He'd rather have the money spent on a good nib than on a perfect looking pen. Another example, I mean, here's another example where it's missing the end and it's missing the clip. Okay, so it's a pen that only a mother could love, or an artist, or someone like me. I look at this and I don't see a pen that's broken. I see a pen that's well used, what was well used in its life, enough so that it has been traumatized. There's teeth marks there. It's very tasty. So anyway, this is what I'm just showing you, this little video, because this helps me when seeing writing and seeing drawings and seeing the size of the writing with a ruler next to the image. This all helps me figure out how you're holding the pen and the sort of lines you make with it. And it'll help me get a pen that I think you will like. It helps me hit a home run. If I can't see you across the desk from me, sitting, breathing the same air and testing out pens together, this is the way that I like to do it. So it requires a little bit of work on your side. You just don't press a button and add to shopping cart. You have to think, and you have to tell me what you want. And then I have to do the work of finding the pens for you. Now what I will do with both of these guys is I will select 3 or 4 pens and sort of imitate their handwriting and their drawing style, and show how this pen can do what they already do, but it also can do a little bit more. This one has a flexible nib, and it can make a line that's this thick. It has a fine flexible nib, so it can make lettering that's finer than you write with this one, and broader than you write with that one, so there's a variety. And one might be a $50 pen, one might be a $80 pen, one might be a $100 pen. Or some variety. I like to present a variety to the buyer so that they have a choice. Certainly, when I do select pens, I'm not going to select a pen that's more expensive than they want to spend, because I don't want to tempt them into buying something that they don't want to afford, they can't afford or don't want to afford. But I want to keep within their budget. If later on they decide that they really love this thing and they would like this exact pen, but in a perfect barrel and cap with a clip and everything, then I'll say, well, I'll look for one. I'll look for a pen to fit that. But chances are, you're going to pay another $100 for that perfect condition, or whatever, some amount of money extra. But I wish there were an easier way for me to do it, to do this. Even if I made a video for each pen I'm going to sell, let's say I have this pen and I take a nice picture of it. Sorry, pen that actually works. Let's say I wanted to sell this pen to anyone. I'd make a little video like I'm making right now of just this pen, and I'd measure it and I'd show all of the flaws and everything that you'd want to see when you were buying it. And then I'd write with it, and then you might want to buy it, and then you get it and you say, gee, it's scratchy, or gee, I'm left-handed. Well, why didn't you tell me that before? Because left-handed is, and if you're a hooker, not a pusher, that means a lot. It really, really does. And it will help me to know that in advance. I also, money is money, and I need it, and I've got bills I've got to pay, and I shouldn't say no to any amount of money that's coming into me. But I want to make sure that this pen goes to someone who's going to use it in its full capacity. There's been many times when I've, a customer has been here in my house and has chosen a pen, and it's perfect. They love it. They love the way it writes. They love the weight of it. They love everything about it. And I watch them write, and they never press down to make it be flexible. Well, you don't have to press down to make the pen work, but I'd rather sell you a pen that isn't flexible if you're not going to make use of it. If you don't need a pickup truck, why buy a pickup truck? If you're never going to actually use it to haul leaves or branches from the farm, goats to the slaughterhouse, if it's just to make your gun rack in the back seat of the car look good, I guess that's okay. But I want this to be in the correct hands. And though this guy wanted this one, I don't know if I can see that he would make use of this flexibility. Now, I'll email him and just make sure that I'll send him this video as well, so he can say that he would like to try a flexible nib. And if you've never used a flexible nib, by all means, it's a great experience. But again, I want to make sure that if I can, I will sell the pen to the right person. That's one of the reasons why in my head, I have a group of pens, and these are going to go to writers. These are going to go to artists, and these are going to go to calligraphers. I already have them sorted out into groups. And it doesn't mean that a writer doesn't want a pen that would be also good for drawing, but if they're the drawing pens, the pens I like to sell or to save to sell to artists are pens that I know can take a certain amount of abuse. Because when you're drawing, you're pushing the pen around and making marks that are connected to your emotion at the moment. Your absinthe-driven muse is pushing the pen to make this expressive and dark and emotive and abstract, and I don't want to have. I'd want a pen that will live through that sort of abuse. For a calligrapher, I give them a pen that might require a little bit more TLC, because a nib that's really fine or really flexible might get broken in the hands of an artist, but it won't get broken in the hands of a calligrapher because they know how to create these standardized letter forms. A writer can certainly use either of the two classes of pens I just talked about, but chances are when they're writing their letters or writing their checks to the electric company or doing whatever they do to write with, they're not going to have the room and the desire to make these big calligraphic shapes. So pens that are very smooth, very reliable, that start up instantly and work really well, I'll sell them or aim pens to them that are sort of smooth, overly smooth perhaps, and mainly smooth. I guess that's it. And because they're a writer, and they might have one pen only that they're using, not so much as a tool. Yes, it's a tool like a hammer or a screwdriver or the tool that the artists have, calligraphers have, but because it's also maybe the one pen that they own. So it might have to be pretty. Maybe that one, they're the people that are going to get the nice looking pen because it's important to them. It's the part of their wardrobe. It's part of the statement that they're making as they take out their pen at the office and at the board meeting and take notes of the merger. They have to compete with the guy that has the president of the company that has the big Mont Blanc because he's so important. Well, my Parker 51 from 1947 is the pen that I'm going to take to the office, and this should impress you even more than that Mont Blanc. So for a writer, personal pen for the writer, that's different than the pen for the calligrapher and the pen for the artist. They're tools. An artist, when he goes to the store to buy a paintbrush, whether this is red or black doesn't make any difference. It shouldn't really make any difference. Maybe it does. I don't know. I'm not an artist. It's the bristles. It's the length of the thing. It's the width of the number of bristles, the shape of the bristles. That's what's important. I don't think how from from there to here, I don't think that's important. Maybe it is. I'm not a painter. But anyway, this is just what I go through when I try to sell a pen to you. And you, and you, and you. So, and if you have any questions or suggestions, let me know. See you later.